Morning and welcome. It's dawn, a beautiful dawn here in Scotland, and at the house. I'm going to settle down with my coffee and also very special mug. Here I am in Kirkintilloch, and there's a good reason why I'm at home rather than elsewhere. Normally, if I end up at home, it's because I can't go somewhere and order the broadcast because it's too windy or it's too dark, it's too difficult or whatever, and it's weather based. And as you can see, there's no reason why I would be anywhere else, or I would be at home because of the weather. I'm here because of the circumstances in which we all find ourselves, and why we should be self-isolating as much as that we can at home. Now today, both Lorna and I are not going to be self-isolating because we're going to go on a visit, but that's also quite important, and I'll explain why in a minute. These are unprecedented times, and it means unprecedented things must be done. Yesterday on Facebook, I posted up a picture of a friend of mine and her story, Heather. Heather is a sound engineer at the BBC. It is believed that she contracted COVID-19 when she was at the Scotland-France rugby game working. And if you know me, that means that the virus is now been caught by a friend of yours, a friend of a friend of yours. That makes it real. And one of the reasons we're going to go on a visit today is I'm going to go down and see my daughter. Briefly, I'm not going to spend a huge amount of time with her. This is normally her weekend. She would normally be upstairs sleeping just now. About to come down. She normally comes down very early on a Sunday morning when she's with us. But Keris has an underlying heart condition. I'm a diabetic. Lorna's family, there are a number of people in her family who have underlying health conditions as well, particularly her dad. So it's important for us that we wash our hands 20 seconds, that we clean everything, we look after things. We also have Kira, who's one of our NHS warriors. She's out there on the front line, and she's a carer. Cares very deeply and worries about, going and doing her job on behalf of us all, and then coming back here and possibly infecting us. She doesn't have a problem because of her age and the stage of her life and how healthy at 21 she is. But she worries about other people because that's her job, but also that's part of who she is, that's part of her DNA. And how proud can you be about people like that? Well, I'll tell you how proud. You can go back into the House of Commons and reverse the pay cut that was given to the NHS staff, the nurses. You can go back into the Commons and you can think about how the care staff that we have at Inspire Scotland are going to go in day and daily in order to work with the children, the young people who are in our care, whether they have the virus or not, and try to keep them safe. Kids who are in care through no fault of their own, but because of the circumstances in their life have left to a traumatic upbringing that ends up with them being in care. And we are the carers. We are the ones who are attempting to go after them, and are now confined to barracks. Spare a thought also to people who are artists. This is another ex-student. I mentioned it before. I went down to 13th Note in Glasgow to show you where his next exhibition is going to be. That exhibition's in jeopardy now. It was moved back into July. My son's an actor. He's coming back up from London today, because there's no point in sitting in your backside waiting for stuff that's not going to happen, because there's no freelance work, there's no self-employed work, there's no budget stream there in order to pay for their wages. I got a taxi into work the other day with a taxi driver who had 24 hours to go before he's being laid off. Went down to Kirkintilloch in order to get fish and chips, and there's Galoni's, an institution in Kirkintilloch, a small business that has decided to cut their prices for the elderly, or they have decided to send out free food to the elderly. If you just tell me where they are, people who are affected by this, tell us who they are. We'll send them some soup that can be put in a freezer, that can be kept for nothing. And I know that there are small businesses all over Scotland, all over the United Kingdom, as many in Birmingham and Liverpool as there are in Edinburgh and Glasgow and Aberdeen, who are struggling because of this. And what is some people's reaction? The first thing that really does my head in is panic buying. And where does this come from? Well, it comes from people spreading things like a virus. Videos of idiots standing going, it's going to go in lockdown at 6:30 tonight, by the way. I've just been phoned. There was one guy who even did, oh no, wait a minute, I'm just being phoned, and then he came back, a split video, so he go, I've just been phoned, I've been told in good authority Thursday night at 6:30, troops are going to be in the streets. So what happens? Everybody panics. You're responsible for deaths, big fella. How do I know that? Cut gatherings of 500 and under. You ever been to a supermarket in the last 3 or 4 days? It's filled with people. And by the way, supermarket workers who are going in order to keep the chain of supply going and putting themselves and their families at risk. The bankers open. Is Richard Branson walking about the streets handing out whatever Virgin make these days to people to help them get through this? No, they're not. Is a single parent who cannot afford anything hoarding. Is a family who have got an addict in the house and the children are terrified, who are not getting fed properly. Are they hoarding? No. Are the pensioners who are struggling to make ends meet hoarding? No, they're not. It's the middle classes who are going and ripping things off the shelves, sticking them in the back of their Audis and disappearing off into the night, who are taking the very food from the working class, the people who need it most, the people who are most vulnerable in our society. And they will no doubt, when it comes down to children in need or comic relief, make themselves feel better by donating a few quid. And talking about a few quid, how is it possible that at this time there are billions of pounds available in order to help people in need? The government talking about paying 80% of people's wages. Where'd that come from? Why was it not there when we needed to put money into our health service? Our health service is on its knees. It was the best health service in the world because it was free at point of need. A universal service where investment was going in order to help the most vulnerable live. Now, people are struggling to get sufficient equipment and a ward to treat vulnerable, sick and ill people. What kind of society allows that to happen? And then suddenly there's £330 billion in order to help everybody. Where was it before? Is it more money that we have to borrow in order to top of the borrowing that we've already done? Now, don't get me wrong. I think it's a tremendous fund. I think it's a great idea. I think it's a fantastic gesture on behalf of a Conservative government that the majority of whom I don't actually like their policies. Brought in by a Chancellor who seems, and was suggested, was more of a puppet than anything else, but now is being touted a potential future Prime Minister. All very, very interesting, which will come to roost at the end of it all, I've got no doubt. But right now, we'll hold on to those questions, but we'll ask people, on behalf of my family, the vulnerable within it, do us a favour. Do your tell. Stop putting stuff on Facebook about sheeple and how it's going into lockdown, and see you clowns who eschew science, who believe that we'll get through this with a strong Scotch broth and a hardy attitude. My pal Heather's ill. She could do with a nurse. Fancy it. Go prove us all wrong. On you go. Go and volunteer and put your own beliefs on the front line. Because Facebook's a very, very safe place for you to stick your opinions. And frankly, that's exactly what I would love you to do. Otherwise, won't it? Show us. Please. So, aside from that, in a happy place, or not so happy place, Alex Salmond is a sexual predator. Former First Minister Alex Salmond is facing a number of sexual allegations in his trial, which lasted 2 weeks, finished on Friday. It managed to get through the whole coronavirus pandemic panic and finished, and now over the weekend the jury have been sent home and will consider their verdict. Now, if Alex Salmond is guilty of even one of these offences, he should be punished. He should not be above the law. Whether I believe in his politics or I don't, that is completely immaterial. Justice should indeed be blind. However, Harvey Weinstein, he is not a public figure, certainly, and if he were to fall, the hashtag #MeToo movement would have a victim, a very public victim, and potentially, it has to be said politically, a very significant victory, and it might reset a lot of the attitudes, because it has demonstrated that even somebody who was in the highest political office in Scotland is not immune from the law. And to an extent, there's part of me that hopes that he does get convicted, but then I go back to only if he's guilty. Because I do think that, considering the number of rape cases that don't even get into court, considering the number of sexual assaults that happen that don't get reported, that if there is sufficient evidence to get somebody through a particular burden of proof into a courtroom, it's massively important that it happens, even if it's somebody who we admire, trust, love, or whatever. It's very, very important. So that will potentially knock coronavirus off the front pages for at least a day. Sport's not get much, so therefore it's got to have some nonsense. The two bits of nonsense this week which have made me giggle boxing: Tyson Fury and a farmer, a 70-year-old farmer who says he was offered 25 grand to lie for Tyson Fury in his UKAD, UK Anti-Doping Tribunal, where he was found guilty of using a banned substance, but it was accepted that non-castrated wild boar, which he ate, had led to that substance being in his bloodstream, him and his cousin Huey. And the ban was put in place retrospectively, and it allowed him to come out and box very, very quickly. Same with Huey Fury. But now there's a suggestion that lies were told and money was offered. It's a silly time. If it's true, again, who knows what's going to happen? The WBC have come out and said it makes no difference to them. He wasn't the champion when this all happened, so it doesn't bother him. Fury doesn't have a British Boxing Board of Control licence. He is licensed over in the United States. He would have to apply for and gain a licence over here to fight Anthony Joshua, but that's unlikely to happen in the UK anyway. Probably in Saudi Arabia, if it is to happen, tail end of this year, beginning of next year, if ever. So eyes are on that. Also, the football leagues have been suspended and we're all done. For how long, who knows? One of the phrases that I heard over the last 2 or 3 days is sporting integrity, which is a cliche and a buzzword that's come back to when Rangers went bust and they fell down to the bottom of the Scottish Football League and had to fight their way from what was Division 3 then, it's now League 2, all the way up back up to the Premier League, and being second as they were when this coronavirus stopped all matches. Football integrity is something it makes everybody who's perhaps not so wound up with the whole thing chuckle, because if football has demonstrated over the last few years that it struggles with anything, it's any form of integrity when it comes to decision making, and we will look forward to seeing how that one plays out. But as it stands at the moment, the big discussion is about whether or not there should be the leagues should be finished. I don't know. Dundee United should be in the Premier League. Celtic ought to be champions. Hearts being relegated. It's a big tough one. There's lots of money involved. One of the problems is not at the top end for me, it's lower down the leagues. It's your Brecon City sitting at the bottom of League 2, potentially, who could fall out that league. What happens with them? Do they go to the Lowland or the Highland League? What's the deal there? Do we have to look at playoffs with Brora Rangers, I think, and Kelty Hearts, managed by former Rangers captain Barry Ferguson, former Clyde manager, who are at the top of the Lowland League. Both the Highland and the Lowland League teams deserve to have their chance to get into the Scottish Professional Football League. Also this week in writing, I've written a wee piece on David Braxton for Ringside Report, a guy who was sent to me to look at. Brad sends me these regularly on a kind of monthly basis, and a guy who was a very, very good boxer, fought once for the world title in super middleweight, super welterweight, I can't remember, but when the article comes out, read it. An interesting, not quite broken through and become a superstar kind of fighter, which is the backbone of every single sport. And in theatre, a few weeks ago I suggested I was going to have a wee look and see what would Shauna go and see, a colleague of mine who wants to go to the Fringe. Please have a wee thought about the arts, a wee thought about theatres. Theatres are shut, they depend on income. There's no income coming through the door. They may be, some of them are going to be lost, some theatre companies are going to have to fold. Nobody's immune, and it brings me back to nobody's immune. We will be going down in order to see my daughter. We'll go and spend a little bit of time with her. If there is any doubt whatsoever over anybody in our, I haven't seen Heather for a long time, if there's anybody round about us who are likely to be contagious, it's something we will stop. Of course I have a right to go and see my daughter, but I have a responsibility to ensure that she is safe, and if that means I don't see her for a wee bit of time, hey, she's 12, coming, it's her birthday soon, a whole birthday treat has been cancelled. We'll catch up, we'll sort it out. So, from the house, from the dawn of what, who's to know? Till next time, bye for now.